right, we're back at it. Sapiens Forward channel here. Gonna play some more AI Dungeon. Thanks for joining and tuning in. So let's get back to it. I am playing my chosen campaign. So this will be part 4, I would say, of this campaign and the chosen story on AI Dungeon. This will be the 4th session, so part 4. Where we left off last time was pretty interesting. So for anybody just checking this out now, AI Dungeon is a AI facilitated online game that's largely text-based, but uses AI systems, AI models to create a story and allow you to participate and interact with that story dynamically. So it's kind of created on the fly and put together for you, just for you. It's pretty neat. Been trying this out. This is a game by Latitude Games. You can see it at aidungeon.com. And this particular story, the chosen story, it is centering around a young man. That's me. I'm the protagonist in the story. Kind of living in a time of Arthurian legends, like King Arthur, that sort of thing. You think that kind of vibe, that kind of environment, that kind of backstory and environment and setting is probably the word I'm looking for. And my character, Apollo, his village is under attack by some enemy knights. I have this sword. I discover that it is a rune sword. It's magical. And embark on a journey, a quest, to figure out how to save my family and the people in my village and probably the whole kingdom from being under the yoke of this tyrant, the regent Ethelred. So, where do we leave off? Here we are in the story. We, in previous sessions, had gathered some more magical relics, some artifacts, an orb, and what amounts to a spell book, a tome of celestial runes, and we have started our journey back southward to Brithholm inside the kingdom of Oromane to ultimately find the stronghold of Ethelred. He is a regent there, so there's some other king. He's not really in the kingdom at the moment. Ethelred is in charge. A lot of people don't like him. He's considered a tyrant. And ultimately we discovered that it's probably our best strategy is to seek out his stronghold of power and bring him down. Now, I've accumulated some allies, some companions. Mordred, who is a archer of the old gods. These are my story cards here I've put in place to kind of keep track of some of the figures and places and factions and items that have come about in the story. We have Galahad, Sir Galahad, just straight out of the Arthurian legends, the same name. But he is a knight of Oromane who is opposed to the tyranny of Ethelred, and so has kind of joined the loyalists to the true king, and kind of started a sort of rebellion against that. Renaud, who more recently joined my party, we encountered him after we discovered a recent battle site between some of these knights of Oromane and the loyalists, and we convinced Renaud, after helping him recover from his wounds and healing him, to join our team. Switch sides, really. And Sir Cedric, he is somebody we encountered most recently at this camp that we found. After we left that battle site, we encountered some various peasants and people in the countryside kind of trying to escape this destruction and what's going on with all these battles going on. And so we thought, hey, these people need help, and heard of a campsite of this loyalist group nearby on the River Thames. That's how it puts it in the story. See if maybe we can get some of these people there and they can seek shelter and get help. And so while there, we met with Sir Godric, who's kind of in charge of this loyalist camp, trying to build some forces to oppose the tyranny of Ethelred. and really sought out their counsel and determined, hey, maybe now's the time to combine our forces and put together a group strong enough that we can oppose Ethelred more directly, and see who might join us on that quest. And Sir Cedric said he would join us and many others. And so as we ended our council, we see that a lot of people from the surrounding countryside have flocked to our banners and are joining our cause, and we've built up a pretty impressive force, a united force, a powerful army of knights and soldiers and civilians. And we are on the cusp of beginning our long march toward Ethelred's formidable stronghold. So that is kind of caught up where we are from the end of the last session. And this is a pretty key inflection point in the arc of the story that I've started here. It's kind of like a hero's journey. It's a classic archetype of stories. A young man or woman, but in this case man, who is thrust into a dangerous scenario, is kind of a neophyte, discovers hidden power, embarks on a journey to grow and learn and expand upon those powers, ultimately to overcome a very terrible calamity or malady, something that's impacting us. In this case, it's this regent, this tyrant, finding allies and friends along the way, gaining strength, gaining more capabilities and powers and tools and items and things. Some of them epic in nature, of a rune sword that is essentially, seemingly sentient. It has kind of a mind of its own. That's pretty incredible. And ultimately, to build up strength to come back and confront this great evil. So it's classic hero's journey. I like this story. I'm really glad that I chose this chosen storyline to try out. This is, kind of like my first foray into AI Dungeon and checking out. I'm really impressed so far. I think it's pretty great. So let's keep going. So here we are. At this point in the story, we've accumulated this force of knights and soldiers, and we're ready to begin the march. So let's go ahead and make that happen. So next step is, I like to use the do command to kind of, when I want to say things to the group, but I wanted to make sure it really takes the form of an action, moving the story forward, and not just to say things. Because we can say, that sort of deal. And I don't necessarily want to just use the continue button, because this is interesting. I'm still learning about how that function works, but you can choose the continue option, and it'll just progress the story how it thinks best. And I don't necessarily want that to happen. I want to shape the story in the way that I would like. But we'll see what happens. So I think the best thing to do here at this juncture is I want to kind of solidify on this idea that, we begin this long march and then see what happens next. So I just want to really emphasize it. So instruct my companions and the combined army to begin marching. I think it's south, marching towards, but the direction may not be super important. While this really has like a vibe of kind of like text-based RPGs from years ago, and kind of like the feel of like a tabletop Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing, some of these details are just kind of assumed. Like I don't have to say, oh, I'm moving south now, or if I say the wrong direction, it's going to screw up. Like, it still feels like this particular it's more about the story. So, and I think that's great. I mean, at least for what we're doing here, it's more about the story itself and not necessarily getting caught up in super minute details. And that's okay. Begin marching towards Ethelred's stronghold. Like, for instance, I don't necessarily know like exactly how far away Ethelred's stronghold is. It could be 2 miles. It could be 200 miles. I mean, we're not really tracking that, and so some of that's abstracted. But that's okay too. I think sometimes those things can be important, but sometimes it gets in the way of actually telling the story. So I instruct my companions in a combined army to begin marching towards Ethelred's stronghold. You stand tall, surveying the assembled force of determined warriors, your companions at your side. We march for Brithholm, for justice, and for the countless lives Ethelred has destroyed, you declare, your voice echoing across the encampment. A resounding cheer erupts from the gathered soldiers, their spirits ignited by your words. With a final nod to Mordred, Galahad, Renaud, and Sir Cedric, you lead the charge towards Ethelred's stronghold, the thundering hooves of your steed reverberating through the earth. As you advance, you encounter Ethelred's forces, their numbers formidable and their tactics ruthless. Yet your army remains steadfast, their resolve unbroken. You engage in fierce battles, the clash of steel and the cries of the fallen ringing in your ears. So this is interesting. This is not quite what I was expecting. So again, like what I was kind of talking about there a minute ago was some of the distances or the factors of time and how that might elapse in real life terms versus the story. They don't always seem, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent? Like, in my mind, the way I was envisioning where I was at in the story, I'm at some camp, maybe somewhat far from Ethelred's stronghold, but maybe not. But I didn't bother to try and look into that and kind of inquire about that within the system of the game here. I just kind of assumed, maybe it's kind of far away, we got to march toward it. But as far as this is concerned, with how the AI Dungeon Master has kind of put it together, we've kind of already gotten there. We said, let's start the march, and now we're there, and now we're already fighting. So, just kind of jumped straight to it. That's cool. So we've encountered Ethelred's forces. They've got a formidable army. They're ruthless. But we're engaging in a battle. So one thing I recall from a previous piece of the story a couple sessions ago is we encountered some Oromane knights, and I chose to try and use a little bit of subterfuge, or maybe some tactical moves to try and capture some of those knights and not just get in a straight up fight and kill everybody. Why I'm always thinking that way, right? Be strategic. Maybe we captured and get some information. And lo and behold, we did. We captured this guy, Roger Monfalcon, and he had some maps and charts of Ethelred's stronghold, and even like a ring, a signet ring, saying who he is. I think it's at this point it's probably too late to try and sneak into the castle. Maybe I could have thought of that, but we're kind of building an army. You don't really sneak into castles very well with an army unless you're doing a Trojan horse kind of thing. But hey, we're there now, and the fight has started. But maybe we can utilize some of that information to see if we can find some way to find a weakness in the castle. So that's what I'm going to see if I can try and engineer here. Let's see. Talk with my companions and see if the information we learned about Ethelred's stronghold might reveal any weaknesses in the defenses which we can exploit. Yeah, that's the ticket. We definitely don't want to just keep beating our army against a wall of steel. A battle of attrition is never fun. So you huddle with your companions near a campfire, its flames casting dancing shadows upon weathered faces. Mordred, ever thoughtful, rubs his jaw as he speaks. Ethelred's stronghold is infamous for its near impenetrable walls, yet all fortresses have weaknesses. He recounts tales of an ancient unused passage, now hidden and heavily guarded, rumored to provide entry to the stronghold's heart. Galahad and Renaud chime in with observations from their scouting, supplemented by bits of information they gathered from within Oromane. Between these details, a vague notion begins to emerge. The entrance is potentially located in a secluded northern ravine. The air cools with nightfall as you discuss possible tactics, skirmishes blending together as a backdrop of impending confrontation. Okay. So, maybe we can do a classic move here, sneak into the castle at night, open up the gates, let the army in. That would be so classic. All right. Let's see how I can kind of suggest we try and do that. Suggest to my companions that we take ourselves and a small force of knights to the secluded northern ravine to try and sneak into the stronghold so we can ultimately open the gates to our army. That's a little bit much. I don't want to overload the context there of what we're trying to send to it. Suggest to my companions that we take ourselves and a small force of knights to the secluded northern ravine to try and sneak into the stronghold. Let's do it. Let's see what they say. You suggest to your companions that you take a small force of knights to the secluded northern ravine, hoping to locate and exploit the ancient, unused passage into Ethelred's stronghold. Mordred, Galahad, Renaud, and Sir Cedric agree it's a worthy plan. Under the cover of darkness, you and a select group of warriors make your way to the ravine. Careful not to disturb the natural camouflage of the landscape, you move stealthily through the dense foliage. Senses heightened as you search for signs of the entrance. Finally, after hours of searching, a glint of moonlight catches an aged door, half buried and adorned with faded runes, nestled into the rocky incline. A surge of exhilaration runs through you and your companions as the promise of success urges closer. All right. I like where this is going. We need to see if we can open this door. And I need to not forget that I have magical artifacts in my pocket. I've got a rune sword that kind of has a mind of its own. I have an orb that focuses my power, and a book of celestial runes which allows me to cast elemental spells like creating fire and wind and ice. If I forget to do all that, that would be really sad. So I'm going to have to find a way to weave all that in. If this door doesn't open, I have a feeling I'm just going to blow this door down. So let's see. So let's do another do. Try to open the aged door. Pretty simple, straightforward. What do we got? You extend your hand to grasp the handle of the aged door, the cold metal startling against your skin. As you push the door open with a low creak, it reveals a hidden staircase, hewn into the rock itself. A dank smell assaults your nostrils as the faint smell of moss and mildew fills your senses, signaling many years of abandonment. You, Mordred, Galahad, Renaud, and Sir Cedric follow the narrow stone steps down, swords in hand, lit torches guiding your descent into the hidden chamber. Murmuring the incantation whispered to you by the mysterious being from your last encounter in the realm of the Old Ones, your orb glimmers softly at the forefront, casting long dancing shadows which swallow the eerie silence. Lingering uncertainty permeates the air with the taste of wet earth on your tongue. That's awesome. So this is cool. Remembered the orb. Got that orb. So, hey, we're using my magical artifacts and the old ones. That was a really neat thing that occurred. I think it was maybe part 2. We had discovered this ancient crystal castle where we were learning about how to use these magical artifacts. I was being instructed and taught by this legendary warrior on how to use some of these. He was like part of this faction of people who were sort of a cult for the old gods. And in his castle, while exploring, discovered this strange door, which ultimately turned out to be a portal to some other dimension, really. Some kind of astral plane or something like that. right? Just some other place that is not of this planet that we're on. And there's these beings there. They didn't seem human really. Hard to tell if they were malevolent or good, but definitely not good. But wasn't sure if they were entirely bad either. Really, just kind of maybe. What would be a good alignment for them? Maybe neutral evil or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, they offered to share forbidden knowledge, and I was like, nope, I'm out. Maybe a missed opportunity there. It could have been interesting to see where I could take that, but ultimately, I didn't want to take too many chances with the storyline, and so I noped out of that and made my way back to this reality. But hey, the old ones, it called that back, so that's pretty cool. All right, so we're working our way toward the hidden chamber. This hidden chamber. So he mentioned this previously. An ancient unused passage. Provide entry to the stronghold's heart. Hidden chamber. You know, my thought is to try and sneak around and maybe like open the gates so we can let the army in. And then maybe during the chaos we can try and see if we can find this Ethelred guy and maybe we can take him out. Like decapitation strike here, right? I mean, this would be a pretty standard classical strategic play here. You use a little bit of ninja activity to get into the castle, open up the gates, but not necessarily so I can get the whole army and I can fight with them, but rather if we got an army break into the city, well, that's going to distract a lot of the guards and other, and they might say, hey, everybody to the front gates because they're busting in, right? And meanwhile, me and some special forces guys can move around inside the castle more conveniently, and maybe we can find this Ethelred guy. It seems like a solid strategy to me. Let's see what we can do here. All right, so try to make our way towards the castle gates so that we can sneakily a word. Sneakily. I don't know. I try to be careful about my language I use because, you know, it's an AI system. It uses a large language model. If I'm using words that don't make sense or aren't actual words, it's going to get confused. So, as smart as it might be. So, try to make our way stealthily is probably a word, right? Stealthily. Using stealth. How about that? Use all my words. Use some good grammar. Using stealth. Try to make our way towards the castle gates so that we can open the gate to our army outside. Let's see what happens there. Let's give it a try. You tread softly with your band of knights, navigating through the castle's courtyard under the moonless sky, relying on the faint glow of your rune sword to guide them. There's our rune sword. Nice. The towering gates, intimidating by day, seem to loom like a silent giant in the shadowy darkness of the night. Adrenaline surging through your veins, you instruct your knights to hold position while you venture forth. Slowly and quietly, you edge closer, slipping your lockpicks out of your belt, a useful souvenir from a long-forgotten encounter in Morganhold. Very cool. Morganhold, that's the village that I grew up in. Skillfully, you maneuver the lockpicks, carefully teasing out the castle gate's mechanisms to avoid triggering any hidden guards or alarms. It clicks, granting your covert efforts a silent approval as the castle gate creaks open with near imperceptible slowness. All right, we're doing it. Gate's opening up. Let's see. I'm going to have them see if one of my guys can go get the rest of the army, get them to see if they can break into this castle now. Cedric, he's not one of my original guys. I want to keep Galahad and Mordred with me. Cedric's kind of joined the crew more recently. And I'm just talking through this from a roleplay standpoint. I really want to try and just roleplay things perhaps unnecessarily, but for me, I like to do it in a way that makes sense. And maybe I overthink things, but I mean, that's the purpose of it, right? I mean, it's role playing, it's creating a story. Why not try and make the story make sense, right? So instruct Sir Cedric to group up with the rest of our army and have them invade the stronghold through the now open gate. Alright, let's go get them. You signal Sir Cedric to regroup with the rest of your army and lead the invasion through the now open gate. A glimmer of pride flickers in his eyes as he acknowledges your command, disappearing into the darkness to fulfill his mission. That's right. He recognizes the strategic mastery. I mean, I'm just some kid from some village, a peasant, but I've been training. I've been reading books. I've got all these guys training me. I've got the strategic know-how. Here we go. So meanwhile, you and your trusted companions Mordred, Galahad, and Renaud stealthily infiltrate the inner chambers of Ethelred's stronghold. Your footsteps echo softly in the dimly lit corridors, the weight of your impending confrontation heavy in the air. As you near Ethelred's throne room, a sudden commotion breaks out. Shouts and clashing swords reverberate through the stone walls, signaling the beginning of the battle. You exchange tense glances with your companions, quickening your pace towards the source of the chaos. Nice. I love how it just kind of assumed, I mean, not assumed, but it took it this next step, which is exactly what I had in mind. I mean, I didn't tell it that, bringing in the other part of the army to invade the fortress, from there I was going to want to take the rest of my guys and find Ethelred. I mean, I said that as I was talking out loud here of what I wanted to do. But I didn't type it at that end, and yet it kind of arrived at that. I think that's neat. But yeah, so we're making our way towards Ethelred's throne room, and looks like my ploy to get our army to create a distraction and get a fight going is underway. So that's awesome too. All right, so let's see. I basically want to get my guys to group up outside and see if they're ready to bust into this guy's throne room and see if we can catch this guy. I mean, I kind of assume we're going to kill him. But, I don't know. We'll see what happens, really. Alright. Group up with my companions outside of Ethelred's throne room. And check with them to make sure they are ready for a fight. You gather with Mordred, Galahad, and Renaud outside Ethelred's throne room, your hearts pounding in unison. Are we ready for this? You ask, looking at each face, determined, resolute, and slightly anxious. Mordred nods, his hand resting on the hilt of his rune blade. Interesting. I don't know if you've got a rune blade, Mordred. Hey, it seems like a little bit of a story glitch. Happens sometimes. Hallucination? Maybe that's the word we're going to want to use. I've got the rune blade, not Mordred, but I don't know. Maybe he's got one too. I mean, he could tell me all about the rune sword that I had. Maybe he's got a rune blade. Yeah, that's fair. I never asked what kind of weapons he had. I mean, he's an archer. But hey, cool. He's got a rune blade too. He replies, his voice steady. Galahad and Renaud exchange brief glances, gripping their weapons tightly, their expressions mirroring their readiness. Together, you push open the heavy doors, stepping into the throne room. Ethelred, seated on his ornate throne, sneers at your intrusion, his eyes flickering with malice. You dare challenge me, he roars, gesturing to his guards, who immediately surround you. The battle ensues, a whirlwind of clashing steel and spells. All right, here we are. This is the boss fight. So I want to try and use some of my artifacts in a really neat way here. I haven't had a chance yet to do that, and I don't want to miss out on that. So this is the way that this wrapped up here. It just kind of leaves that open. So now I can kind of take this where I think I might want to. This is kind of my style. I really like to go with distractions. From a strategic standpoint, I think distractions are super valuable. You want to keep your enemy focused on things that aren't actually the point and aren't important to you, so that you can act with more freedom. Kind of like, getting the army to invade his castle so that we can sneak to the throne room without a bunch of guards stopping us along the way. That sort of thing. Alright, so why don't I try and do some kind of like elemental fire spell, and maybe catch some stuff on fire and just create a little bit of chaos in the throne room to our benefit. Use my crystal orb to create elemental fire and set some of the draperies hung throughout the throne room on fire, and set on fire some of the draperies hung throughout the throne room. In order to create confusion amongst, I don't know if that's a word. Create confusion among Ethelred's guards. Use my crystal orb to create elemental fire and set on fire some of the draperies hung throughout the throne room. It's kind of a run-on sentence. The throne room in order to create confusion among Ethelred's guards. Let's just do it. Let's see what happens. I want to light some stuff on fire. That's basically the gist of it. You clutch the crystal orb tightly, focusing your energy on the runes etched within its surface. A surge of power courses through you as tendrils of flame burst forth, igniting the draperies that adorn the throne room. The flames dance wildly, casting chaotic shadows upon the walls and momentarily obscuring Ethelred's guards in a veil of smoke. Mordred, Galahad, and Renaud seize this opportunity, striking with precision at the disoriented guards. Their weapons slice through the air, finding their marks with deadly accuracy. Amidst the confusion, you unsheath your rune sword, feeling its ancient power resonate with your own. Together, you and your companions fight valiantly, slowly but surely gaining ground. Throughout the swirling smoke, Ethelred watches with a twisted smirk. Okay, so supposedly this Ethelred guy has his own evil rune blade, or rune sword or something like that, and is able to do some dark magic. That was what was hinted at previously. So he doesn't seem to be too concerned with what we're doing, and he's kind of finding this amusing. So that's got me a little bit scared. But we're doing our thing. My tactical move here to set stuff on fire and create chaos is doing what I wanted it to do. We're getting the upper hand. So what am I going to do? I want to kind of take the story forward to ensure that we finish up the guards, so it's just us versus Ethelred. I want a nice, healthy disadvantage of numbers in our favor. Attack the closest guard with my rune sword. Help my companions dispatch these guards so that we can leave Ethelred without any protection. Any allies? Maybe that's a good word. Let's see how this goes. Stinking. There we are. You lunge forward, your rune sword gleaming in the firelight as you strike down the closest guard. Oh, one shot. Your companions follow suit, a coordinated dance of steel and strength. With each swing, you weaken Ethelred's forces, leaving him increasingly vulnerable. Finally, the last guard falls, and a heavy silence settles over the throne room. Ethelred rises from his throne, his smirk replaced by a scowl. Here it goes. He hurls a barrage of dark magic your way, but you're prepared. Your orb absorbs the energy, growing brighter with every strike. Mustering all your strength, you hurl a burst of pure energy from your orb directly at Ethelred. And then what? I almost just kind of want to click the continue button now. I mean, how is this going to unfold? How much am I going to direct it? I don't know. I want to... Maybe I just want to like reiterate that line and see how it takes this fight with him. Is it going to carry it on, or is it going to just be one fell swoop, this guy's going down? Focus all of my elemental energies from the orb, from the crystal orb, and launch my most powerful magical attack possible at Ethelred. Meanwhile, my knights and friends are like, what's going on? You focus all of your elemental energies from the crystal orb, gathering every ounce of power from the celestial runes etched within its surface. A massive surge of energy builds, pulsating with an intensity that threatens to tear the orb apart. You hurl this cataclysmic force directly at Ethelred. The throne room trembles as the spell collides with Ethelred's dark magic, and an explosion of blinding light engulfs them both. Your companions shield their eyes, and when the blaze subsides, Ethelred is nowhere to be found. A relieved hush sweeps through the room. The weight of your quest finally lifted. Together, you and your companions have toppled the tyrant, saving Brithholm from Ethelred's ruthless regime. We did it, I guess. I don't know. That's almost kind of anticlimactic. I think we did it. Well, I'm glad I spent all that time practicing with the orb. This makes me wonder, is this a trick or is this actually it? So, this is the part where I seek clarification by just talking with these guys. Like, man, this is really it? Did we finally defeat Ethelred? If we did it, did we actually defeat Ethelred? And it thinks, and let's see what happens. You ask your companions, their faces still smeared with soot and grime. Did we do it? Did we actually defeat Ethelred? Mordred sheathes his rune blade, glancing around the desolate throne room. Indeed, Apollo. Ethelred is either defeated or he has fled, which is victory enough for us and Brithholm. Galahad wipes his sword clean, managing a weary smile. You've proven yourself worthy of the rune sword and its power today, Apollo. There's no doubt. Renaud nods in agreement. the scar above his eyebrow twitching. Brithholm owes you and your companions its gratitude. Maybe now peace can be restored and our lands rebuilt. I kind of want to do a C here. Um, this could be like a pretty cool visualization here. I'm going to take these. See what it comes up with to kind of visualize that. I don't know. I think that's kind of a miss. That's pretty cool. It's got kind of like an arcane magical seal or something there. I don't know. Anyway, so I mean, it seems like we kind of did it. We beat the big bad guy. So I kind of want to ask him now, like, what happens next? Ask Mordred what he thinks should happen now. And that is something that I haven't really sorted out yet with the identities. How does the story wrap up? You turn to Mordred, the wise archer of the old gods. And what do you think should happen now, Mordred? Mordred gazes thoughtfully at the remnants of the battle, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and weariness. Now, Apollo, we must ensure that the realm of Brithholm transitions into a new era of justice and unity. We need to establish a new ruler who will prioritize the welfare of the people rather than personal gain. A council consisting of representatives from each faction should be formed to discuss and decide the future of Brithholm. Galahad, the Oromane knight, nods in agreement, adding, Oromane should withdraw its forces, allowing the loyalists and common folk to rebuild their lives. Kind of feels like the end of Game of Thrones. Let's get a council, decide who's going to be king. I'm just going to click the continue button. Just kind of see where this goes. How does it wrap up? I mean, I suspect that it doesn't really just go, hey, well, story's done, thanks for playing. Maybe it could go on forever. Renaud, the former Oromane knight, concurs, and the people of Brithholm need to see their new ruler, one who embodies the spirit of unity and justice. They must trust in the changes to come and have faith that the wounds of war will heal. Sir Cedric, the seasoned loyalist warrior, steps forward, his voice resounding with determination. Ethelred's influence may have seeped into every corner of this land, but it's not an insurmountable task to weed it out. With a clear objective and a strong unified front, Brithholm will flourish again. The once unyielding stronghold of Ethelred now lay open and exposed, the scars of war slowly fading. Let's continue again. Let's see what happens now. What next? In the echoing throne room, you forge a pact with the loyalists and representatives from various factions to elect a new leader, guided by the wisdom of Mordred and others in the council. You reaffirm that rebuilding Brithholm requires unity and unwavering dedication from all its people, while ensuring justice prevails and the days of tyranny are left to history. After several days, your group makes a journey back to your village of Morganhold. Oh, okay, great. I mean, the very beginning of the story, after I'd freed my parents, who were captured by these band of knights of Oromane who are raiding, they sent me off, said, hey, you need to go out and get more help. Go on this little journey, this quest. But now we're coming back. The hero comes home. Let's do continue. Let's just ride this. Let's see if the story wraps itself up. The sun glimmers over the distant horizon, bathing your beloved village in golden light. Upon arrival, the villagers cheer, children and adults swarming forward, eager for news of the war's end. In their eyes you see both awe and hope, now free from fear of Ethelred. Days turn to weeks, the healing process has begun. Time, however, will not stand still. Repairs to war-ravaged structures, aid from neighboring allies, and efforts to consolidate the various factions forge ahead as Morganhold and nearby towns rekindle their livelihoods day by day. Among this recovery, news comes that several artifacts with the potential for corruption much like the rune sword that now rests within a custom-built Morgenhold monument, need to be secured. Oh, is it kind of taking the story to a next phase? That's interesting. Hmm, that's fascinating to me. I mean, it's kind of like, hey, here's some side quests. Here's kind of like a different arc to the story that you could take. Hmm. I'm worried that if I just click continue, it might gloss over a lot of stuff. Or that could be something I could potentially explore. I think we should stop to say, check in on my parents. And Morganhold, I mean, see if they're back. I mean, how are they doing? Hey, I've been gone for a while. And see how they are doing. And catch them up on all of the events of my quest. It's thinking. You find your parents in their small cottage, the smell of freshly baked bread filling the air. I want some bread. They look up as you enter, eyes welling with relief and joy. Your mother rushes forward, wrapping you in a tight embrace, while your father watches, a proud smile on his face. We've heard the rumors that Ethelred has been defeated and Brithholm is free of his tyranny. Your father says, his voice filled with cautious hope. You share the details of your journey, the battles, the friendships forged, and the council formed to shape a new Brithholm. Your parents listen intently, their eyes never leaving yours as they absorb your words, a sense of pride swelling within them. As you finish, your mother takes your hands, tears glistening in her eyes. No. I mean, are those happy tears or those sad tears? Let's continue. You've become a hero, Apollo. We're so proud of you, she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Your father nods in agreement, placing a gentle hand on your shoulder. We knew you had it in you, son. You've grown into a remarkable young man. You spend the afternoon recounting tales of your companions, Mordred, Galahad, Renaud, and Sir Cedric, sharing their strengths, wisdom, and sacrifices. Your parents listen, enraptured by the stories of these heroes who fought alongside you. As evening falls, your mother serves the hearty bread, fresh from the oven, along with a warm stew. You gather around the table, the warmth of their love and pride enveloping you, a warm respite from the harsh realities of your journey. Oh, I think that's kind of a nice, heartwarming end note to the story, I think. Maybe that's where I tie that one off. I mean, that's kind of a nice, but there was, his brother. That was a key thing at the beginning of the story that hasn't been wrapped up. I should ask him about that. So in the very beginning of the story and the story opener and the story notes, our protagonist has a brother who went off to war fighting against the Knights of Ormain and has been caught up in this war for some time. So I should ask him if there's any word from him. Parents, if there has been any word from my lost brother, Edgar. Has he returned now that the war has ended? You ask your parents if there's been any word from your lost brother Edgar, hope sparking in your chest. Has he returned now that the war has ended? Your mother shakes her head, sadness clouding her features. No, Apollo, we had no word of Edgar since he was conscripted. We can only pray that he is safe wherever he might be. Your father places a comforting arm around your mother's shoulders, his eyes reflecting his own concern for Edgar's fate. Despite the weight of the news, you find solace in the notion that your quest has brought justice to Brithholm, and perhaps peace will grant you the opportunity to search for Edgar in the days to come. Okay. Well, that might be a side quest to take out. We could see what we could do there. And finally, I want to ask about my sister. Also, ask my parents about Sinithrith. Is that how I spelled her name? Sinithrith. Just really catching up on the whole family here. So I also ask my parents about my sister Sinithrith and if she is safe and well. You inquire about your sister Sinithrith, concern etched on your face. Is she safe and well? Your father's expression brightens, a fond smile gracing his lips. Phew. Sinithrith is as strong and resilient as ever. She's been helping with recovery efforts in the nearby villages, using her keen intellect to devise efficient ways to distribute aid and resources. Your mother adds, she's even formed a strong bond with Mordred, the archer of the old gods. Together, they've been teaching survival skills and strategies to the village children, inspiring them with tales of heroism and hope. A sense of pride swells within you, knowing that your sister has grown into a formidable young woman, following in your footsteps. Well, that's great. Sister's doing good. She's been hanging out with the old guy a lot. That's concerning, but he's cooled up, so maybe that won't be a problem. So I want to add some story cards here. So it's like Edgar, my brother. Let's generate this. So I'm going to create a story card to keep track of key characters and things like that. So it's strange because when it's creating this and trying to generate it, it's almost like it's thinking that I'm Edgar. But that's not true. Edgar was my brother, according to the original story. So I'm going to try and make this a little simpler and not put a name and just put my brother. And see what it does there. Here we go. Nope. I think it's running into some trouble there. I mean, I might, this is a case where it's interesting what we can do with this system, which is I can just do this manually, which might be what I have to do. In retrospect, I probably should have created a story card for Edgar in the very beginning. It'll be really neat with the new versions of AI Dungeon, the Heroes version that Latitude Games is working on. I think the story cards will be generated automatically. It's like a whole re-evolution of the game, this next version of it. So, so I'm going to copy some of this. I'm going to create a story card manually. I'm going to write this out. So Edgar. So I'm going to write this out a little bit. I just want to make sure it's going to capture, because I think it could be some places to take the story somewhere. It's conscripted into the war with Oromane and hasn't been heard from in some time. Let's go and clean this up. Edgar is your lost brother. He was conscripted into the war with Oromane and hasn't been heard from in some time. You can only pray that he is safe wherever he might be. Okay, I mean, I think that's pretty good. Grant you the opportunity to search for Edgar in the days to come. I mean, I think that's a pretty good story card. And that'll make it easier for the story generator to really understand where he fits into it and who he is. Because I think it's been running into some trouble with that, thinking I'm Edgar. Um, Probably should have created one for father and mother. Let's see what it does here with this. There we go. What's her name though? But hey, leaving her children, Paulo and Sinithra, to embark on a perilous journey to rescue her. Okay, okay. So mother was a healer. And father. So father, humble blacksmith. Yep, captured by knights during a raid. His fate is not unknown. He's still alive. So I'm going to edit that a little bit. Alright, alright. So he's a blacksmith. Good old dad. And when I first started this campaign, I really should have asked, hey, mom and dad, what is your name? But it didn't reveal that when generating it. Alright. Well, this is pretty cool. So I think, really reached a conclusion on this phase of the story. We took out the big bad boss. But curiously, there's some other artifacts that could be sought out. So I need to find that. They mentioned this here, and that may be something I add as a story note, because I could keep the story going and see if there's something to that. I mean, there's a couple of different things. These other artifacts, which could be problematic, and they need to be sought out and acquired to make the place safe, but also brother. So where was that at where I saw this here? Here we go. Among this recovery, news comes that several artifacts with the potential for corruption much later now rest within a custom build. How could I create a story card for that? I'm not sure. But this seems like a plot line that I could pursue to continue the story. I could create a story card and call it Artifacts with the Potential for Corruption. I mean, maybe that's a way I can put that in. I want to add the story card here. It's something that the story could really branch off to. I'll call this a custom one. I'll call it items. Let's see what it does. Oh, nope. Let's have it generate something. What does it do? Let's see what it comes up with. So, artifacts with the potential for corruption include relics like the sealed grimoire, the crystal orb, and the rune sword. Those are all things that I have. These items possess immense power tied to the old gods, making them both highly sought after and dangerous. Their misuse can lead to significant consequences, including madness, corruption, and chaos. That doesn't sound good. The old ones advise caution, emphasizing the importance of responsible handling. Securing these artifacts, especially after defeating Regent Ethelred, becomes crucial to prevent misuse and ensure Bethlehem's future remains free from dark influences. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, it seems like there might be a few angles to keep the story going. I think probably the one with the brother, Edgar, is probably the most promising lead for like a new plot line to come out of this and see where that goes. I mean, it would have been really interesting if like dear old brother was actually like Ethelred in like disguise, but that would have been kind of cliche, I guess. But we did it. We defeated the big bad. Really proud. That was pretty cool. That was my first campaign here with AI Dungeon. Made it out alive. Everybody seems to be pretty happy except for brother, and maybe we'll see where that goes. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the session today. Thank you so much for watching. I think that wraps up the Chosen campaign for the most part. We'll see. I might revisit that one. But there are a lot of other storylines and campaigns to check out AI Dungeons. So I might check out a new one next time. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you find this interesting, please feel free follow the channel, ask questions, that sort of thing. But